have something to say, but Russ has something more important to say. So go ahead, Russ. You say what you want to say. Go ahead.
No, actually, you could go first. I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Thanks. All right. So I know this. And listen, I was out during the elections and everything like that. So I know this is like old news. And I'm not talking politics at all. Okay. I'm not. I promise you, I'm not. Okay. I promise, because we don't want to go there. What I'm talking about are in Pennsylvania, you guys didn't see it, but in Pennsylvania, the ads that ran during the World Series, okay, when the Phillies were playing.
I saw it, yeah.
You saw it, right? You would see, right. So you saw this. So like the ads about, this person supporting rape of young boys and all these crazy things that were going. Is there any responsibility at all, the World Series is an event that's watched by children and everybody. Like that's a completely.
Oh, yeah, my browser.
And these are regular times. Millions of viewers, right? And the Susan Wild, one of the people was running for whatever you think of her, regardless of whatever the story was, the attack out about her was she supported this person who raped somebody, right? And it was a raped young man. And whether or not that's true or not, should this be allowed? And I'm not going to even go there, but should this be allowed during like commercials, during television shit? Like, do they have any ethics, Kevin? Is there any ethical aspect of this at all?
Well, there should be, but apparently there isn't, because then they can get away with. They accuse the other person, both sides do it of everything.
Yeah, of everything.
So I don't know. It's ridiculous.
It's just over after a certain time. Maybe like when we were younger, like certain things couldn't be said. But I'm like watching this, I'm like thinking, man, all the kids, like, because here we are. We had I'm inside because I'm coming off of COVID, right? But outside, my wife has we have a little projector out there, and she set up the projector, and she's streaming it. We have children out there, and I'm watching the World Series inside, and I realize they're watching this outside on the projector with kids from the neighborhood and everything like that. And sure enough, this commercial came up. I'm like thinking to myself, this is blasting through the neighborhood from our television outside.
Well, okay. The problem is that there is a First Amendment, and the only recourse here is that the politician who makes these statements think that they're overstating things, and you vote against them. That's how you. So sure. And after Tuesday, you're not going to see them anymore. But the thing is, it really is. It's not just political ads. It's like there are certain ads on certain stations that I see. Like I'm watching a particular talk show, and then this ad, this ad comes on for like the My Pillow guy, and I don't want to see he's annoying and he's a charlatan. I don't want to see the commercial, so I just mute it or I change the channel until the show I want to watch comes.
Yeah, but if you have kids, like I saw people complaining that
someone think of the children though. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I get that, but what's the opposite? It's like if you don't let those commercials on, then you're not really going to be able to get your message. I mean, it's a shock. I don't like the content. I don't like it on either side, but I don't know an answer.
For Oz, it was killing dogs. Like he's out there killing dogs, right? Killing puppies. You saw all the rest. Whether or not it's ridiculous, like that this is on television, like that this is on.
Yeah, I didn't love it. All right, I'm going to switch.
So just one thing. Let me just throw one thing in. Although I'm not necessarily sure the kids were seeing it, because there's been a lot of discussion about how kids can't watch the World Series because it starts too late. So.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, I can't believe baseball.
Yeah, it's a different argument, though.
I mean, I felt like you guys will be happy to know something about this. I did, because I had so much time, and because the Phillies ran in, because the Phillies were a very interesting, fun team to watch, regardless of who you believe. I mean, they had some really crazy, classic Hollywood type moments. I feel back with baseball. I have to admit it. Like I started watching the others. I started watching the Atlantics, the other, the National League and the American League. I really did fall back in love with baseball, because I forgot, how much I played baseball to a pretty high level as a kid.
Well, we know you must have been sick then.
No, I was really enjoying it. So
no, that's good. That's good to know.
It does take forever, Kevin. I mean, like some games are like 4.5 hours long. You sit there and
yeah, it does. Yeah,
I know they're changing it for next year, right? But
next year with the pitch clock, hopefully it'll be shorter. All right. So here's my quick thing, and this could happen with the NHL too. So the other day, Matt Stafford went into concussion protocol. Now Kevin knows Matt Stafford after a Rams game. Now the interesting thing about this was, Sean McVay said there was no indication that he had any kind of concussion or anything during the game, but afterwards he got examined and they decided he should go into protocol. And Matt Stafford's wife had a lot to say about it, because she's got a podcast, because she's got followers online, and she said he's not okay and this is bad and the NFL needs to do better, and so do the Rams. And it's an interesting thing, because I feel like if family members get more vocal with the NHL, the same thing is going to happen, because what happens is this is what I've noticed in all of sports. There are guys that are clearly getting dinged and getting concussions on the field that if they act like they're okay the minute they get up, a lot of times they don't get spotted, and a lot of times they just play with their bell rung, as they used to say in the old days, good or bad because they want to. And I'm hoping less of that starts happening in the future.
Well, this is nothing new, because if you remember after one of the Super Bowls, the soon-to-be ex-wife of Tom Brady, Giselle, said he was concussed multiple times, and there was no response from him or from the Patriots, because that sort of flew in the face of the whole protocol thing. I mean, come on. I mean, honestly, I think it's in the wake, Kev, of all the lawsuits regarding concussions, the NFL has tried to put a nice face on concussion protocol. But these guys still go out there when they're like ding. I mean, please, the Tua thing, he was staggering around like a drunk. And they didn't take him out of the game, and then he came back in the second.
They should. That's when the coach should take him out.
Yeah, you really should. I would point out, though, and I've actually talked to players about this, and there was an episode with Sidney Crosby during the playoffs where there are players who refuse to allow themselves to be part of that protocol, saying, look, this is my health. Right. This is a medical issue. Mm-hmm. There are laws against these kind of things. And I'm going to make the decisions about my medical health, not you, not some guy that, spots me from the stands and all that. I mean, it is a big issue. And the league and the Players Association have tried to protect players from themselves, but there is that issue. And I have noted that it seems to be even more prevalent. This is just my speculation, because I have no empirical evidence, but it seems that hockey players are more resistant to this, that they want to be able to make their own decisions about that. Crosby, I was part of that. He did one. He said, look, and this was his argument. No one knows, no player knows more about concussions than I do. I understand my body. I understand the symptoms. The conversations that I can have with a doctor about concussions and symptoms and such is a lot different than, a young rookie. And he said, if I tell the doctor, no, I'm fine, I recognize when there's problems, they ought to be able to trust me on that. That's what he said.
I get that part. I mean, look, the NHL did pull Shesterkin during the playoff game, and he didn't want to go, and they did that, and that's the right thing. I'm just saying a coach should really be the fail-safe here, and especially in the NFL, they don't pay attention. They don't want to pay attention, especially if it's a quarterback. They don't want to know, because they know that they're going to probably lose the game, or they're going to give up points on that drive. Yeah. But they got to look at the bigger picture. Yeah. That's, I think, the issue here.
I'm with you. I'm just saying there's more to it than just the coaches, oftentimes the players. I think NFL guys, though, it's been my impression, they're more in tune with the idea that they need help to protect themselves.
Yeah. So. Well, they should be, right? I mean, that's a good thing that they are. I mean, it's such a freaking serious thing. I mean, a lot of people, I had to stop playing hockey when I was a kid because of concussions. And that was pretty, I was really mad at my parents at the time because no one was doing that. I had a couple of concussions and they're like, you're not playing for a year. And I was like, come on, get out of here, because everybody else, back then was just get a headache, get back in the game, whatever. But
there's a lot of NFLers that aren't that old that either die young or have CTE. A lot of them.
It's brutal. All right, let's do this. Here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, November 10th, 2022.
Are you sure about that? I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Russ Cohen. 2022 is a good year.
Kevin Allen. I'm not even sure about that, but yeah.
I wouldn't call it a good year. Not personally.
It was a very good year.
I've spent about the last 5 months anyway. All right, here we go. Let's talk.
Yeah,
well, that's
what we do.
Let me start out by saying that I took grief. I mean, that's an overstatement.
Okay.
I took a little bit of I got poked by one of my readers over my refusal to stand up to Mike Lagello when he said that the Islanders don't score enough goals. Because on that particular day, my friend viewer pointed out that the Islanders were 8th in the league in scoring average.
Yeah.
Now, subsequent to that, which I'm now letting him know, they're in the middle of the pack. They've gone down because we haven't played enough games to make it real.
Right.
But on that day, he was right.
I wish I had a turban so I could do my Karnak imitation.
I make the simple argument here that if you're more than a +10 goal differential, you're scoring enough goals.
Yeah. Well, that's a reasonable position to take.
You might not be a great goal scoring team, but you're scoring enough goals.
And you got to score them at the right time. So sometimes even that could be a little deceiving.
And they're +13 goal differential.
Yeah.
Just discuss some. Let's just hit on some news to start with, and the Evander Kane skate cut injury. It was funny because the incident wasn't funny, obviously. Against Tampa Bay, he gets knocked to the ice, and Patrick Maroon, it was completely inadvertent with the skate on his wrist. He grabbed the wrist immediately, went to the bench, went to the locker room. I saw this happen with Ilya Mikheyev a few years ago with the Leafs. And when I talked to Russ the following day, I said 3 months easy, because that's what Mikheyev got hurt in late December. And he didn't come back until after in the bubble, after the pandemic. So he missed 3 months, and then he was back 100%. They said the prognosis is 3 to 4 months. So he's out probably until March.
March, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a big loss for them, because now they're back to where they were before that trade, Kev, where you had secondary outlets for offense besides Draisaitl and McDavid. You had Hyman, you had Nugent Hopkins, you had Puljujarvi to an extent, and you had Kane. Now you don't have Kane, and it's more pressure on those two guys. And I continue to say they're too dependent on those guys to carry that team.
Yeah, but I think what you do in this case, first of all, your lineup can't be held against you. In other words,
right.
You basically talk to your team and said, look, our mission now is we just need to get in the playoffs. That's the entire mission now, because you're going to be a much better team if you have Evander Kane. Yes. And I think it kind of simplifies everything. And both Draisaitl and McDavid know that this was just fate, that they're having to deal with that. So because you can't really go out and get a replacement for Evander Kane because he's a unique style player. But you could try to get them some help, but even that causes complications, because then when you get back, you'll be like Boston, where we're scrambling trying to figure out how to get Charlie McAvoy back in their lineup. So, I think sometimes when these things happen, the best thing to do is just simplify your game, try to do what you can to mitigate the hurt and move on. I will say, I don't know whether all you've had the same reaction, but when I saw the look on the faces of the players, when he skated over, like that scared me. Like,
scared me too,
because they were scared. Like, and Evander Kane was scared.
And they've seen things like this before. So if they're reacting like that, that's a big deal.
That was a scary situation. And thankfully that doesn't happen more often. But isn't it a little surprising that it doesn't happen more?
It's incredibly surprising that doesn't happen.
Yeah, because that was so innocent. That Maroon's just trying to get the puck. He goes down.
More because players are pretty mindful. Like, a lot of times they'll jump another player, they'll move out of the way, they'll do a lot of things to try and avoid it. I've noticed that.
How mindful can you really be? In some conditions. They're going full out. I remember meeting with somebody during the Olympics who was working in Vancouver, who was working on these they had metal enforced socks, to keep that from.
It's the Kevlar.
To try to keep that from happening.
The problem is like you can't cover yourself 100% in Kevlar. There are Kevlar socks to prevent skate cuts on the ankles or on your Achilles.
Right.
But it's the wrists. We know goal scorers inherently always have the loose gloves so they can stick handle better. And the defensemen always have the ones that go up to their elbows because they're blocking shots all the time. So, I don't think it's going to change anything. It's just, it's a one-off. It's tragic, but it doesn't sound like it's career threatening. It's just going to be something he's going to have to, it's going to take a long time for him to get back. And I mean, you could look at it this way. It's probably like their trade deadline acquisition that they're going to be able to add Evander Kane in March.
Yeah, but don't you think too that will cause players to, and we saw this evolution with baseball. Players got weary of getting hit on foul balls off their shins and so forth, and then they asked for / demanded protection, and all of them make their own choice of what they're going to wear. But it's like they're removing suits of armor now when they walk and go to first base. Like I almost appreciate the ritual they go through with untie this, set this ball.
But hockey players don't want to wear that stuff.
And they put it, they set it down. The stack has to be just right.
Exactly.
When they do that. Now the question would be, I remember when this started in baseball, there were guys that said, "Oh, I just can't wear all that kind of stuff." Now they all wear it. They have to get used to it. So hockey players, I've heard them say the same kind of thing.
Well, they've all said that,
yeah. But if we ever had a career-ending injury or something of that nature, or something even worse than what we saw, I bet more and more players would do it because their wives, mothers, girlfriends, and themselves, they don't want to die to play the sport.
If we teach kids, isn't there some kind of wristband they could wear or something that they could put, like something that could protect?
Yeah, but that's the point. That limits their flexibility in terms of the wrists.
I know, I get that, but not.
Carlson still doesn't wear Kevlar socks. I mean, we talked about that. There are guys that don't want to do it.
Look at that now. So
but like anything else, you get used to it, and
When in Major League Baseball, when did the players at the plate start wearing the helmet? Because in the 60s and the early 70s, I think they were still wearing just their baseball.
The liner, they were wearing the liners.
They were wearing the liner inside. That's what I used to wear in Little League when I first started.
Yeah, there were players that refused to wear them. They didn't feel comfortable, all that kind of stuff. And then just over time, they got. Now
the ear flap was a big deal.
Now we got the bar.
The ear flap was what I was going to mention because the Dickie Thon getting beamed by Mike Torres, I think it was 1982. The most of the time before that, it was just the hard cap, like the one you would get at 7-Eleven that you would fill your Slurpee in. It was a cap with no ear, and Dickie Thon got hit right in the ear-eye area, and he was never the same. And then following that, everybody was wearing a baseball hat, with the
ear flap. Yeah.
So yes, maybe it'll change things, but knowing hockey players, it won't.
Here's my suggestion for the Oilers: tell Jay Woodcroft to play Dylan Holloway more than 4 or 5 minutes a game. And maybe you'll help develop him and get some points that you'll be missing from Evander Kane. Like there's a guy right there that you could try and get points from within that's talented.
I agree, Russ, and I think that one of the Edmonton problems has been with all their coaches that they have not allowed McDavid and Draisaitl to make the players around them better in similar ways that we saw like Lemieux and Gretzky always do. We haven't had
Crosby's the best at it, really.
Yeah, Crosby's great at it, but there's no Rob Brown or Kevin Stevens.
Yeah, but Crosby. I keep making this point on Crosby. The guys who were the most successful with Crosby weren't star players. It was like Pascal Dupuis, Chris Kunitz, Jake Kennedy.
He's a cycling game player, so the best players that have been with him have been other really good cycling game players. Those are the ones that have been. He's probably the best cycling player of all time, honestly.
They put a Ginla with him, and it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that happens a lot, right? So I think, it is interesting how they haven't really necessarily done that. The thing Edmonton has going for them real quick, I'll say this, is that they have 2 goalies now that are better than the 2 goalies they had last year. Both of them are better. So if, regardless
of... got one goalie that's better.
Campbell, I'll still take Campbell over the other 2. Right?
That's 4.2. His save percentage is under 900.
It's early, Mike.
I'm just saying it's early. I'll still take him over those guys anytime.
Okay. Well, yeah, please.
He's actually playing
Right. I mean, he will turn it around.
Neither of the other Leafs goalies are actually playing, so I don't think you have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
Go again.
Well, there's a topic I wanted to discuss just because, I'm in addition to being a sports junkie, I'm a political junkie. So I always, during elections, I always have the TV on. And the one non-election story that's been covered pretty strongly by CNN this morning, actually all the networks, NBC had it, and I saw on ABC as well, has been, and it entered our world over the last couple of days, has been the proliferation of fake Twitter accounts caused by the $8 Musk. And for those of you who were asleep at the switch or just don't pay much attention to Twitter, somebody paid the $8 to get themselves a verified, and that's the key thing, the verified checkmark account, because Elon Musk now says he'll give those to anyone who wants to give him $8 a month. And said Connor McDavid, it looked just like a Connor McDavid account, including the check, said that he had been traded to the Islanders. And
there's one for Jesus Christ. It doesn't get any higher up than that.
Donald Trump had one. And I forgot, there was somebody's Twitter reaction said it only took me 2 beers to figure out it wasn't the real Donald.
Right. Well, somebody went on as a fake Adam Schefter and fired Josh McDaniel.
Yeah, LeBron James announced that he wanted to be traded. This is going to be incredible at the trade deadline.
Can you imagine? Oh, geez.
Because you can essentially put up a fake Pierre LeBrun and verify it and make it look that way.
Here's what I found, though, Kevin. This I think is really true over the years of doing social media. We're seeing it now because people are going to do it now. But people who are doing these things in general won't keep paying to do them. Like I do think, because scammers don't like to pay money. Like they don't.
It's $100 a year. Of course they're going to pay. But this is the thing. I mean, okay, it's really on the laziness of us or me specifically. If I go out there and I look at something and I see a trade and I retweet it without looking at, now, okay, I know that people can change their name on Twitter. Like I could go on and change, Michael Jello to Mike Buffalo or whatever, or, Jesus or whatever, and I can do it. But if I have the check mark and it says Mike in Buffalo, then it's me. If it says Mike in Cheektowaga or something like that, then it's not me. That you have to look a little harder, and you can't rely on the blue check mark. You have to be.
Well, that's the thing. The blue check mark saved you that extra couple. That little.
And now apparently there's going to be a gray check mark. Did you hear this? This is true. He's going to do a gray check mark for the actual.
He's destabilizing the whole platform.
Don't do it. Don't.
Yeah. There was a fake Michael Jello before. I remember that. And that, as much as I want to blame all of this on you, like you just said, it's all your fault. I think that it's I don't think it should necessarily come all down to you for every wrong trade on Twitter. You're right. You're right that we do each have to like sort of follow our own way, but the whole point of this is like, I told you guys before, I've refused my blue check mark a couple times because in the beginning when I went to do it, they wouldn't give it to me because I was using a pseudonym, and then I said, well, forget it. And then when they tried to give it to me, I said no. just out of spite.
You really taught them, I'm sure.
I did, didn't I? They cared. I took my stand, Kevin. Elon. The thing about Elon Musk doing this thing is he's trying to Twitter's an important thing. He's trying to save the world or whatever he's trying to do. He didn't want to buy it. He did want to buy it. It was a really crazy story. But really, at the end of the day, he has no idea what he's gotten himself into, because the real problem with this.
I think he does.
No, I don't think so. The real problem with this is, take China, for example. Okay, China is, they control Twitter, right? They want to control Twitter in every which way, and Twitter so far is like, no, you can't. They can't. Elon Musk does a lot of business in China. With Teslas are a really big thing in China. It's going to be interesting to see if he can allow China to ban certain tweets, and he's in the wrong. He should not be in the content.
Here's what I would say:
decision business. He should not be deciding what content's good or bad.
Yeah,
two of Twitter's
Jack Dorsey, he should.
No, he shouldn't. But I'm just saying that this is like, there's a definite conflict of interest.
To me, here's the issue: 2 of Twitter's chief technology people resigned today, and they basically said, "Good luck with keeping up with the law and everything, with the laws and everything else that you have to with the FTC and all of that. And he has no idea how to do any of that.
But getting back to Kevin's point, though, it's going to we're going to have to be extremely careful from now on, getting closer to the deadline for fake Dragers. And we were having to do this before for fake Dragers and fake LeBruns and fake Elliot Friedmans, and just make sure we know the handles for the and the handle is the big thing. If you Friege HNIC, that's Elliot Friedman. We know it.
Yeah. Mike, I had to fight with Twitter a long time ago because someone did a EK capital IUND, which looks exactly the same as EKLUND. Right?
Yeah.
So
they're gonna get it close, and there's still gonna be mistakes. Right.
Yeah. And they made the point this morning that it isn't just the four of us retweeting, like the hockey deal, but it's the people who have 500 followers and there are 100 of them and they do it.
Yeah.
So suddenly you got that's 50,000 as well.
Right.
It becomes trending.
Yeah. And so the journalists all may check and figure out that it's not the when it started and stuff, but there'll be others that will just retweet.
Plenty of people.
Yeah. So they do throw those people out. I mean, the guy, the fake, it was taken down pretty quickly. The LeBron James was taken down pretty quickly, but that's what I'm saying. But you're only wasting $8.
Well,
maybe once, but whack-a-mole. I mean, it's whack-a-mole. Like we always say, whack-a-mole. If you try to get somebody out, they can get back in. We throw people out of our site all the time, and they get back in by using
maybe
their IP addresses and stuff like that. So
maybe Kevin could teach a course in civilian journalism, as Elon Musk has said that's what's going to happen now. Maybe Kevin can do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the new role for me. So.
It's hard to have free speech and civility at the same time. It's almost
right.
So I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we have to.
But it's going to affect the hockey world. It is.
It's affect everything. Yeah.
By the way, Russ Cohen and I had an in-person lunch with Russ today because he's in Michigan, and I'd like to say we solved all the world's problems. Mostly we talked about trading cards and the hockey, and it was just a delightful lunch.
It was a good lunch. It was.
Awesome. Yeah. Did you take him to the donkey place, Kev?
No, I took him. Russ does not eat hamburgers, so I would have taken him. So I took him to a family restaurant called Three Brothers, which my uncle, who was involved in politics, always liked to go there to have political meetings. And if Russ can speak to it, it's the right atmosphere for that.
It is.
Yeah, it's an old school restaurant. I think both of us had pierogies of all things.
Yeah, I'm putting a picture up with those pierogies. They were the best pierogies I've ever had.
Wow.
Here's a question for you.
The Coney Island thing, I thought that's the most interesting thing about you. Your area, Kevin, is all the Coney Island hot dog thing. It's just incredible.
Coney Islands are big, but they're known more for breakfast, in my opinion, in Michigan. And we have a lot of them. So we pretty much have a Coney Island in every city. But I like the question from Chris in Long Island about Bo Horvat because it's invaded the Red Wing territory too. Because Nick Kyprios, and this is really interesting because there are grains of logic in it. And that says he's floated the idea that right now no one knows, but why? But Larkin's not re-signed, and he should be re-signed. He's a hometown guy. So many players like him signed this summer, so there's the market is pretty established. But it sure seems like Yzerman doesn't want to pay what that market is, or maybe Larkin's asking for a little bit too much. I don't know which, but he's not getting done. And so Kyprios floated the idea of, somehow Bo Horvat coming to Detroit being more of a two-way guy, which fits into what the Red Wings are trying to do here, probably is not going to cost as much as Dylan Larkin and, fills that center role. And then, I guess Larkin then would go into free agency and go to Columbus where he could be with his buddy Werenski.
Right.
Maybe we need a number one center or somewhere else. So anyway, I'm not passing that along as a rumor because I don't think there's been any discussion about trading him, but I having read that, usually I, kind of roll my eyes at those kinds of things. But I thought there was some logic in it, even though I wouldn't do it.
Well,
So-
I spoke to somebody in the Canucks organization about this on Monday, I guess it was November 7th, right? That was Monday. And they said, listen, other teams, there's a lot of teams showing interest in Horvat because everybody thinks that, obviously this is with the Canucks struggling and the reality of the salary cap, Horvat seems like the logical guy that they're not going to be able to keep, right? And we've all kind of wondered how they're,
yeah. Well, and the other element, Eck, is there's a feeling, right or wrong, that he will sign for less than the big time guys want to.
Yeah, just a slightly below,
just slightly, but $1 million seems to mean a lot.
Right, it's a big deal. The Islanders are a team that he told me that had contacted him about it. And what was it that in and of itself is not a really big interesting rumor, but what was kind of interesting to me about it is that he
about
said
Horvat or
about Horvat.
Okay.
And he said the Islanders did say that they had a very small window with this that if they weren't going to do it, they were going to do it soon. And I don't, and he said I don't know what that exactly meant. We don't.
They probably would pedal off Pajot. Maybe he's got some sort of no move or something that's going to go away, or that turns into a no trade, whatever.
I can see Horvat working with the Islanders in a lot of ways, though. I mean, he's definitely an Islander type player.
Yeah, he's a hard worker. He's outscoring what he normally does this year.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Horvat.
He could work out there.
I think I would definitely do that.
Now, the suspicious thing here about Horvat, and everybody put the trade rumors regarding him in connection with the early struggles of Vancouver.
Right.
Well, Vancouver's starting to bounce back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just because they signed JT Miller doesn't mean that they don't want to keep Bo Horvat. But the problem is that Horvat probably wants close to what JT Miller got, and they're not going to pay him $9.5 million. And on top of that, Pettersson's up for a new contract, I think, next year. So you just can't pay everybody. So
and he's killing it right now. Like he's having a really good beginning.
I know, but I'm not paying them. They've paid too many guys, top of the market value. You know what? They need to start getting some assets because they don't produce players. They don't develop players, and eventually they're going to be at the bottom of the league if they keep this up.
Now, what I could see, and we talked about it before he was signed in the summer, is a guy like Brock Besser being traded because, Horvat's a center, Besser's a winger. Now, Besser's a scorer, and I think he's a really good one. But if you have to make a decision between a center and a non-center, you're probably going to choose the center every single time. Yeah,
so somebody in the chat room says that Pajot has a 16-team no trade, so maybe that shrinks down to less than that.
Up with it, and or the Islanders have another move that they could make to clear cap space right now. That's going to expire soon. It got that kind of impression, like usually when this is happening,
not that much money, not Horvat.
Not the whole, but something that would.
Well, they could trade Mayfield. That would clear about $2 million.
They would have to take money back too. Vancouver would have to take some money back, but it wouldn't be like the money they had to play for Horvat. So, but at the end of the day, I think that it sounded like one of the Lou Lamoriello type things of a deal to set up a deal type situation. So I don't know.
But again, I don't know if the Islanders have the right assets for Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver's looking for defense.
Right, looking for defense. No question about it.
And Mayfield's an expiring contract. They're not going to trade Noah Dobson. They're not going to trade Romanoff.
No.
And I mean the one guy that I think they would trade because he's underperforming this year, but I think he's a good defenseman is Ryan Pulak.
I don't think they would trade him.
Yeah, but they don't need Pulak.
Trade him. I don't think that Vancouver would want him. He's making $5.5 million, something like $5.5 million.
But he's a Lou guy. He's definitely a Lou guy. He's definitely in that. He's definitely in that inner circle there.
Well, other interesting thing here is when is the shoe going to drop in St. Louis?
I talked about this yesterday too in my blog briefly. 8 losses in a row. Just devastating. And it just becomes obvious when you watch them that they are really good at times and really bad at other times. They are just so
fragile. They've gotten to the point where they're fragile mentally now.
In that Flyers game, Russ, they would dominate the Flyers for like 3 minutes at a time. And then
in the first period, they had some good moments. Yeah. First goal goes in, and it's like, all right, then they play a little better. when the second goal went in, that definitely stunned them. But that third goal was it. Like the game was over, 10 seconds to go in the second period. I was telling Kevin about it. And Berube does have an expiration date. We've seen it before.
I think so too. Unfortunately, I mean, and they really just have not replaced Pietrangelo. Like that is like
no. I mean,
you can't replace him. He's a great player, but they haven't really come close to replacing him. Parego
that's
is
why
not
your organizational edict about no trade clauses or signing bonuses is asinine. It cost you. It cost you a lot because he was a leader. He was somebody who was willing to stay in St. Louis. He was not asking for top end. He got top end money from Vegas, but he was willing to take less to stay in St. Louis. But it was because of signing bonus and no trade clauses that they let him go. And I think that's just dumb.
You know, it's interesting. I will say this, and I'm going to say it again because I said it the last time. Ryan O'Reilly has a way of picking out the wrong times for him to be on the record and be very strong about it. He did it with Buffalo when Buffalo was burning, and now he's doing it in St. Louis when it's burning, and he's having a horrible year.
Yeah, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. So
right.
It's the wrong time.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Blues, Kev? Like, where do you see this going from here?
Well, it's reached the point of self-fulfillment. They're struggling so badly that they, it's become a confidence problem, and it doesn't help that they gave Kyrou the big contract, and now he's last time I looked, he was minus 15. Ryan O'Reilly had 1 goal in 10 games. Yeah. Torrey Krug, who was the guy they, paid big money thing. I watched a game where I thought he was among the worst players on the ice as well. So none of their big time guys. And I had heard through the grapevine that they had been shopping around Tarasenko. There were no takers. People are not interested in that. So they don't have a lot of options. And then, Armstrong, give a vote of confidence. Well, that's usually the kiss of death, vote of confidence. But to me, it feels like a team that can't get out of its own way, that they're down. And, it's not like it always feels like, they forgot how to play hockey. I mean, they were a good team last year.
There is a small difference right now between good and bad in the NHL. It's just crazy. And confidence. I've always said confidence in hockey more than any other sport. I think is just enormous. Like when you're a confident team, like Seattle's a confident team right now. They're not as talented as St. Louis. I mean, but look, they're a confident team.
Confidence does a lot.
Yeah. Well, the Seattle Kraken have more confidence than
way more. And they're. I mean, they've won 5 in a row, and you're looking at. I mean, they're not a great team by any stretch of the imagination. So that's kind of crazy. I did talk to somebody the other night about Tarasenko. Who said, the Tarasenko thing is weird because. Here is a guy who did ask for trade many times.
Lucky with it last year because with Buchnevich there and they clicked. Now this year with everything going bad, they probably
suddenly like it's not like everything just got better with Tarasenko.
Right.
I was told by somebody on the Blues. It's like he still has like there's still a bit. You don't want a player who doesn't want to be there, and he had a great year last year, and everybody forgot about it, like you said, Russ. But it's back. If you're not playing well, it comes back pretty quick. It comes back.
Before we get to your game, just some interesting waiver news. Yesterday, the Ottawa Senators placed Nikita Zaitsev on waivers. There was no way in hell anybody was going to claim him at $4.5 million. He cleared, but Marcus Hellberg, who they had claimed off of waivers when the veteran goalie Cam Talbot had gotten injured, he got reclaimed by Seattle.
Not shocked there.
No, not shocked there at all. Now today, Laurent Brasseau from Vegas, who is apparently ready to play, who'd been rehabbing all this time, he was placed on waivers. With Toronto's situation, I would think that they would be interested in claiming him off of waivers if they thought Murray was not ready, but Murray is practicing. The problem is they're at 50 contracts and they can't claim him. But I think he'll get claimed by somebody because he's a good goaltender, and there are a lot of teams out there that need a second goalie.
Yeah.
His salary is only $2.3 million, so that's not ridiculous.
Who's the backup in Vegas right now?
Oh, it's Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson.
It's Aiden Hill. So they're risking that, and Aiden Hill could end up being their backup the whole year, which they don't really want.
Well, the funny thing is Logan Thompson has waivers. He can go, but he's their best goalie. So
no, they can't mess with that. But the idea is if they're going to go with Aiden Hill and Thompson, it doesn't give it.
Hill's playing good.
There are some people saying that Robin Leonard, I mean, is probably not going to be back this year, as they said, but it's not 100%. I heard he wasn't back. Somebody told me the other day that they could possibly trade him at some point this year.
Oh, nobody's touching Robin Leonard.
Aiden Hill's 5-0 with a 9.25.
Whatever. That's going to be short lived.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, he
Listen, the Leafs should get him, Mike. He'd be a starter.
He's on fire right now for sure. No question about it. All right, so the game I wanted to play today is a little bit because I'm a big fan, and this is something that Russ hates, so I'm going to try to make it a way that Russ doesn't hate it. But
don't worry, even if it's good, he'll hate it.
A concept of teams that remind me of teams from the past, or teams that remind me of teams currently, or players that remind me of players from the past. So I'll give you a couple of examples per se. Like I've often said that I said the other day. I said this New York Islanders team reminds me of the Devils teams of the past that were really they play the same kind of way, and it's Lou Lamoriello's team, but they just have the same. They base it on strong goaltending, frustrating teams playing with a lead, and that's the Islanders' way of doing it, which the Devils did for a decade. Jack Eichel, to me when I watch him play, I'm reminded his doppelganger of the past to me is Mark Messier, and I know that people think that maybe he's not as good as Mark Messier for sure. I mean, Mark Messier is a legend. But the way he skates is upright, the way he uses his stick, the way he shoots off of his opposite leg, certain things that Eichel does definitely remind me of Messier. So I wanted to kind of play, but then there's also teams like today, and I'll give you one more. Tampa, the current Tampa team reminds me of that Red Wings team from the mid '90s. You have the Yzerman Fedorov team, where you had the Stamkos, Kucherov team. There's big similarities between those teams right there. And they really feel similar.
Yeah, I mean they're deep at center and scoring wingers, and their defense. They've got Hedman. The Red Wings had Lidstrom. That kind of thing.
The goaltending isn't the same though, because Vasilevsky as opposed to Mike Vernon and.
Well, they had Hasek for later, right?
Hasek was more 0-2.
Okay, yeah. But so to me, and the other thing is to take teams that are currently playing right now, and compare them to each other. And another thing I kind of like to do sometimes is who is the team that's most like the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Western Conference? Throw it out there for a second. Just like so who, if you were to take a team that's closest to the Maple Leafs in style and the way they play and the things that they do and how
Edmonton, because half the Leafs are on ex-Leafs are on it.
Yeah, and they're an offensive team. They need help defense, and there's goaltending is up in the air. So
yeah, very similar, right? So so I wanted to kind of throw some things out. So the Rangers, this current Rangers team, Russ, what team from the past that you can remember, or you can go a team in the any other team in this league that you feel they're similar to.
I will put probably something like the 85 or 86 Rangers. They they could score.
Yeah,
the defense is. It's okay. Goaltending's always good enough. It's good, but they've got some issues, and they've got to be able to solve those issues. And you're looking at the coach, and back then they would look at the coach because I think it was Herb Brooks back then, and Herb Brooks did things differently, and Gallant kind of he does things his own way too. So that's where
what happened to that team in 85, 86? Where I mean, eventually they win in 93, right? So 94, right? So. But that 85, 86 team, is that the beginning of that 94 team?
No. This was I think, believe it or not, I think that was the team that maybe was the first time they beat the Flyers in the playoffs. There was a time where it was either 84, 85, 80, right in that range where the Flyers.
I remember that.
Rangers finally beat the Flyers in the playoffs. I only know this because I was playing softball and we had the radios on 3 or 4 different cars while we were playing. And in a league, and we were listening to the game. So
Can I tell you a great story about that for a second? I was in my high school years. My 4 years of high school were the really most important years for the Flyers. I'm they got to win before I go to college, right? So I'm in high school those years, and there was a save that Van Briesbroek made for the Rangers against the Flyers in a key game at the very end where it was a shot through a screen. It looked like the Flyers were going to tie it. Rangers ended up winning the series at that moment, seconds later.
Yeah,
where I was sitting behind, I could see what he could see. I could see that there was no way he could see anything of the puck, and somehow he throws his glove up and catches it. And I'm sitting in Nashville, Tennessee, at the All-Star game at a table with John Van Beesbrook, and I said, John Van Beesbrook, I want to talk to you about one thing. I actually said, when I was a kid, you destroyed my high school years because of that save. And he remembered it immediately. He's like, if that's that glove save, I'm like, yeah, that glove save.
Listen, I remember John putting his wrist through a plate glass table too, losing the starting job because he was mad after a game. But 85-86, I looked it up back. I was right. That was the year they beat the Flyers 3-2, and that was an odd year. And I think this is an odd year for the Rangers. They're going to make the playoffs. They could go to the conference finals, but there's some things that you don't like.
Right.
Coincidentally, the year that I graduated high school was the year that the Leafs finished last overall and then drafted Wendell Clark. So
there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a comparison. It doesn't work on defense because they don't have an Adam Fox. But in the coaching and in goal and up front, I would compare the 1998-99 Buffalo Sabres to the current Rangers. Hasek, Shesterkin. Offensively, the Sabres had a lot of guys that was put up a lot of goals.
Well,
they don't have. They had 9 players who scored 16 goals or more.
This is like the Briere Drury team.
No. This was Mike. This is the Mike Pekka.
Oh, it's earlier
than
than
Vaclav Varada. They were balanced offensively, but they were not good offensively. They basically had 3 third lines. They were a balanced offensive team, but they had Hasek, and all he needed was 2 goals most nights because that was the team that beat the Leafs in the Eastern Conference Final and went on to lose to the Stars in 6 games in the Stanley Cup Final. They were a creation of Dominic Hasek's dominance in goal. So,
I also think their coaching was similar. Gallant versus Lindy Ruff. I honestly think they scored a lot more goals than you're giving them credit for. I'm going to look it up to see.
Yeah, look it up because I don't think they scored a ton. I think actually their leading goal scorer was in the 20s. I don't think.
No, Shatan had 40 some for sure.
Okay, you might be right. But they didn't have a ton. They didn't have a ton of scoring.
Yeah, let me look it up here. So, but yeah, they didn't have the defense either. I mean, their best defensemen were like Zhitnik and Woolley. And
I got it here, Kev. Satan scored 40. They only had 3 20-goal scorers after that: Pekka, Michael Grosick, and Dixon Ward. After that, they had nobody over 17 goals. They had 207 goals for. That's not a ton.
No.
But Hasek, 1.87 goals against, 937 save percentage, 30 wins. I mean, they were a creation of the Hasek dominance.
Yeah. That's true.
Now
I've got this name for you, Kev. Give me a player from the past, Red Wings or not Red Wings related, that is that you think of when you see Dylan Larkin play.
Good one.
You can think about it for a second. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking on that one. I was just gonna say something humorous if you were gonna ask me name a team similar to the current Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes.
I was gonna say every version of the Toronto Maple Leafs the last 20 years because they have talent and they lose. So until they have different characteristics, but in the end, they have good forwards. Their defense is okay. Their goaltending is sometimes questionable, sometimes good, and they never win. So that's where
I'll give you a humorous one. He wasn't a center,
right?
But I'll go with with Ron Duguay because Ron Duguay was still a really good skater. He could still score goals, but he was not a center.
You're comparing to Larkin.
Larkin. Too soft though. Duguay was a lot. He was. To me,
I don't think Larkin's particularly tough.
He's more scrappy than Duguay. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
The characteristics here of Larkin would be an average playmaker, an above-average shooter,
right?
Which is something. So that's the thing. His characteristics are more like a winger than they are
like a winger, right? But
they are. That's the reason I said it. Yeah.
Another 2 teams I think are very similar. Watching the other night, and it's really they almost have the same exact record right now, and they're the 2 best teams.
Okay, just let me go back to the Sabres because the Sabres that year were 17th in scoring.
Yeah.
The New York Rangers are 17th.
Nice. I like it. Kevin Allen there dropping the microphone.
Can't do much better than that.
All right, 17th.
You're right, but you're right. That team did not have an Adam Fox. Their best defenseman was Alexei Zhitnik. And
actually, think about this.
I think I said that, Mike, but okay.
No,
I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay, all right.
Here's the
Kevin
thing.
gets to move up top. Mike gets to move to the bottom. There you go.
If you look at the point total, Duguay's first 2 years with Detroit, 33 goals, 38 goals. Like that is a lot like Dylan Larkin.
No, but I do agree with what you said, Russ, about it's hard really to compare Duguay because he really wasn't center. So, I mean, Larkin does so much as center. His speed, too, is, just creates so much. And that's why he does get assists.
How about Patrick Marleau?
Yeah, that's not bad, but
Marleau's pretty good.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
He's there.
Center early in his career, relied on speed, good.
More of a scorer than a passer. Yeah,
good shoot.
And pretty good defensively too. That's pretty. I mean, Marleau's pretty good defensively. I think Larkin's probably a little better defensively, but
he's gotten better and better. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know why that Larkin can't or that Yzerman can't get him signed. Like, it makes no sense to me.
It is kind of it feels like there's something else, but who knows? I mean, it's really bizarre. I mean, I don't think the two teams that I think that are very similar right now, and I've watched them both, and they're similar in all the right ways and all the wrong ways, are the Vegas Golden Knights and the Boston Bruins. Like when I look at them, they there are similarities to those two teams in that they have a couple really big time superstars. They feel like they could go either way at any time. They feel like it feels like Vegas has the ability to fall off. Boston has the ability to fall off. But they're both so dominant right now.
Both their defenses are top end, and their goaltending is underwhelming. But it's working
better than you think it is. Their goaltending is better than you think it is. And
it's underwhelming, but I'm saying it's not like they have a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky or even an Ottinger. They have Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill and Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. So we don't know whether that's going to be a chink in their armor when it comes to playoff time. But
I think there's more depth in Vegas. There's a little more depth up front in Vegas, but it feels at the same time that the top people in Vegas are better than. I mean, the top people in Boston are better than the top people in Vegas, but there's more depth.
They're only better because they're more seasoned.
Yeah, maybe that's true. That's a good point. That's a really interesting point.
This week, I read the story and about fell over, but the comparison that Cassidy used for Jack Eichel was Patrice Bergeron. The reason that I scoffed at that was I don't remember Eichel being good on faceoffs, and I look it up. Eichel's 43%.
Yeah, he's never been good on faceoffs.
I think we'll say this. I think this is not an understatement, and we'll say that this when his career is over with. Patrice Bergeron may be the best defensive forward of all time.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Bob Gainey had that.
Gainey's definitely the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, but Bergeron is the center, so he's had much heavier responsibilities. So
he's an incredible shutdown center who also scores 60 to 70 points every year. He's a fiend on the power play. He's clutch as all hell. He's unreal.
He could be.
Who are the really old time centers? Let's go past Gainey, Kevin. Who are the real big old time defensive centers?
Davey Keon.
Dave Keon is a real good one. But let's just think about.
Wasn't Henri Richard a center?
Yeah.
He was known for his defense.
Milt Schmidt with the Bruins back in the day.
Bobby Clark. How about Bobby Clark? That's a good one, right?
Yeah, not as much defensively. He cheated on faceoffs, so he was good on that. But
Bobby Clark cheated? No.
Everybody.
But how about Trache was also really good defensively, Brian Trache.
Yeah, Trache was very good defensively.
Butch Goring was a good defensive center and not bad offensively.
Jan Eriksson was great defensively.
Yeah, he was, but he couldn't do anything else.
He couldn't do anything else.
He was adept at climbing into your pocket. and doing. But Brian Trottier was meaner, and not as nice, as Bergeron.
Right.
He was kind of.
Who was better, Trottier or Bobby Clark?
Oh, Joe Otter was just a tremendous.
Listen, I'm going to say it like this. These are two of the most hated teams of my childhood. Trottier is the better player. Bobby Clark got the most out of his body and everything else, but Trottier was a better player.
Yes.
It was, for sure he was. I do like whoever was in the chat room and said Briere for Larkin, only a little bit smaller. Yeah. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that is that is really good.
Randy says Doug Gilmore, and Doug Gilmore was a very good defensive center. But Russ and I were looking up this off the air. What was the stat? Panarin
came up in the Ranger game. They basically said in Artemi Panarin's first 200 games with the Rangers, he had 266 points, which I said is really doesn't get talked about. But I didn't get to see who the next closest one was. So I said to Mike, I didn't get the answer because I had to pack and had to leave, but my guess was Jágr, and it was because he had the 125-point season. But then Mike started to look up 200, first 200 games for guys with a franchise.
And it's hilarious because Panarin's total is consistent. I don't. Gretzky had in his first 2 years in Edmonton after the WHA was like 200 and some, like
293 or something was crazy.
Lemieux in his first 2 years were ridiculous, but the ones that of the mere mortals, not the guys on Mount Olympus. Pat LaFontaine, when he got traded from the Islanders to Buffalo, he had a 145-point season, the 92-93. His points were in the 260s, so he was around Panarin. And Doug Gilmore, when he came over from Calgary to Toronto, he had that massive year when they went to the conference final, the year they got screwed by Gretzky and the officials. And then the next year, he had a fantastic year when they lost to Vancouver. So, that was 200 games, and it was like 270. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's a hell of an achievement for Panarin.
So my basic point on this one is, everybody talked about Panarin and Kane, and then it's now it's Panarin and whoever, Zibanejad, whoever you want to put. Literally, it's Panarin. Like we should be talking about this guy as an all-time great at this point.
Yeah, he's calling up there for sure.
Yeah. What about Jeremy Roenick and Larkin?
Oh, good one.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think Roenick was as fast, but I like it.
Roenick was pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to argue with Russ. You're probably right.
Especially based on like the desire to play and win.
But I like everything else. Everything else matches up.
Roenick and Larkin will play through. They'll play through anything.
There was a moxie with Roenick that I don't think is quite there with Larkin. I mean, Roenick's first NHL fight was against Marty McSorley.
That's insane.
That is insane. Like,
I don't think Larkin's going to get involved with poisonous snakes like Roenick. So yeah, I agree.
No, yeah.
And the one thing I'll say, I mean, and definitely it's affected by the era that he played.
Yeah.
But 3 100-point seasons and 2 50-goal seasons, 91, 92, 93, and 94.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Larkin's ever put up stats like that, Kev. So I don't know if he's got the top end offensive ability.
The game is different.
I think he played then Larkin could do it because his speed definitely would have gotten him breakaways, and the goalies weren't as good then as they are now. So I think he could have gotten really
better players. Ronnie played with better players for a lot of his career than in Chicago.
Oh, that's definite. That's definite.
And then Larkin hasn't had that. If I'm going to put anybody up against all-time two-way players like Patrice Bergeron, I think it has to be Messier.
Messier is one of the great
different kinds of players, though.
And Messier, as good as Messier was, he was never as good defensively as Bergeron was.
Right.
No, he was far more ruthless.
Yes.
Yeah. Mark Messier would cut your throat to win a playoff game.
Oh yeah, the elbow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And defensively, when he had to be, he was pretty damn good.
I mean,
he was good when he had to be defensively.
I was in the conference finals at Chicago Stadium the night, and I remember the Mike Kiley was the writer for Chicago, and he wrote about the pumpkin carver. The Mark Messier, and he had his stats. I don't remember what it was, but say it was 3 goals, 2 assists, and approximately 60 stitches. I mean, he just cut up everybody, and it was just he was ruthless. And Gordie Howe was ruthless too.
He was too.
Mark Messier was probably closest to Gordie Howe in terms of being just a ruthless competitor. But
Pronger had a little Messier in him, Kev. Pronger was the same thing.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I always said about him, and I was consistent about this. Like, I never wrote a column about how, Pronger should be banned for life. He goes everything because this is my argument. We exalted Pronger for playing on the edge of the rule book. And then when he would go over, we'd say, "Oh, what is this?" Yeah. And yet we constantly talk about, man, what a competitor. I love that guy. And then we'd act, indignant when he just would cross the line. Well, you can't tell a guy you're king when you play on the edge of the rule books, and then when you fall over the line,
Right.
So see, I actually think Messier was dirtier than Pronger. I think Pronger got called more than Messier.
Yeah, it's the big guy syndrome. 2 minutes for being big.
Yes.
And also,
I think that's part of it too.
Defensively has a different windup.
Before we go,
but
I don't know who mentioned snakes, but I have to tell this snake. Whoever runs it on my Facebook, and for all those of you who just hate snakes, and I'm among those, this really just has to bother you. There is an island off the coast of Brazil where nobody is allowed on the island because there's so many different varieties of snakes, including some that are close to extinction. Wow. Now, I don't even want to go within 500 miles of that.
No.
It's inhabited only by snakes.
In fact, I don't want to go to Madagascar where everywhere you go, something's poisonous. So I don't want to go there.
My son has a great video on snakes, guys. If you ever get a chance to watch my son's Land of Puppeteria video on snakes, where his tagline is "Snakes, we're not evil. Some of us are just jerks." I love that.
Yeah.
In fact, if I could rent a plane and one of those 5,000-pound fuel air bombs, I would drop it on that island just to wipe out all the snakes.
Yeah.
I have to say this because tomorrow is the Hall of Fame night in Toronto.
Yep. And
unless plans have changed, Boreas Salming and his family are slated to travel to Toronto, and Borea will be at that game. And with the announcement that was made over the summer and everything that's going on with him regarding ALS, we don't know how many more times we're going to see Borea, and I can just imagine what the reaction will be in Toronto for him being there. I think it'll be unhinged because they do love Borea. He's one of the more popular Maple Leafs of all time, and I'm sure he'll get a rousing and long ovation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Good point, Mike. All right. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the games tonight. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you more about this tomorrow. We'll be here.